Hi, I'm Monty the Software Engineer, and in this video, I'm going to start a video series where I develop a basic semi-functional Wi-Fi thermostat in QML with a C++ backend. The first part will be creating some mockups of what the UI will look like. I'm not really starting from scratch here, as the screens will be heavily inspired by my current thermostat, which is the Ecobee. If you're not really interested in seeing what tool I use to create mockups and where I get different icon assets, go ahead and skip this video, but stay tuned for the next one, where I will take the mockup and develop a QML application. The tool we're going to be using today is called Figma. It's a free web-based tool. There is a desktop application you can download as well. I actually use this at work whenever a new project is presented to us. I like to develop some mockups in this tool. That way I can bring it back to marketing or whoever else gives the no or no go on a project. That way they can kind of have a visualization on what the workflow would feel like, provide feedback on what needs to change or what they actually like about it. That way we have something to work off of when we start developing. There are other tools out there that you can use, like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator. There's another one called Balsamic. But since this is what I use at work and what I'm comfortable using, we'll be using that today. So here, these are my other projects in the past. Let's create a new project. At the top here, you have a bunch of tools. You start out everything with a frame. And when we click the frame button, you can see here they give you a bunch of different pre-made templates of screen sizes, but I'm just going to draw one out here. Screen size, I'll just do 640 by 480. What I like to do first is to put down a background color. If we think about the application for this, it's going to be a thermostat hanging on the wall. Me personally, I wouldn't like to see a big blank white screen hanging on the wall, especially at night. It wouldn't be easy on the eyes. So I'm just going to make the background black. That way when I'm looking at it at night, in the middle of the night, it's not going to be a glaring white screen in my face. Next, I'm going to put down text for the temperature, since that's going to be the main thing you're looking at here. I'm going to put a contrasted color and let's make it big, maybe even a little bigger. Cool. And let's just center that up. I like that it has these snapping lines, tell you you're in the center, either vertically or horizontally. Just makes it really easy to use. Let's add some text below it that will indicate what the system is doing. So let's say this one is heating. Definitely don't want it that big. Let's see, 24, that's a little small. 36, sure. And then let's center that up. If we put it here, we can see that center with the screen itself, and then it kind of gives me a suggestion, so I'm going to go with that. Might even bring this down a little bit. Now let's add some way to control the temperature, bring it up and down. I'm going to put a circle here, and we'll make the circle black with an outline that's white. And let's bump up the stroke on that. 4, yeah, it looks good. We'll center that up with the current temperature text here, and then we'll put some lines above and below it to indicate that you can drag it up and down. We'll make it white, and we'll give it a stroke of 2, maybe a little bigger, 3. Yeah, it looks good. Let's center that up, and then Control C, Control V. Good. And then in the circle itself, I'm going to put text that indicates what the target temperature is. So if it's heating, let's say it wants to go up to 70, and we'll put that in the center there. I think that looks good. So over here in this space, I think this would be a good spot to add a couple icons to maybe go into a settings menu or control what kind of mode the thermostat is in, heating, cooling, or even in automatic mode. I don't think I'm going to add any text to the icons explaining what they are. We kind of want to go for a minimalist look. I think if we get some good icons that represent what they do, it should be intuitive enough. I like to use FlatIcon when I'm looking for icons for my applications. As you can see here, it says there's over 4.1 million icons, both free and premium icons. There are a ton of free icons available, so if you want to use the free icons, it's definitely a good database for that. You do have to attribute the authors. I have a paid membership here, but for the video, I will use some free icons. So let's look up first settings. We're looking for something like a gear. Yeah, this is pretty good. Something simple. I like this one right here. So let's go ahead and actually I kind of like this one. So let's use this one. You can download a PNG. You can even edit the icon. I'm just going to make it white now so I don't have to do it later in Photoshop or anything. Download the PNG. I'll keep it 256. Now that we have this gear icon, let's go ahead and just drag and drop it here. It's pretty big, so we can resize it down. I'll hold shift to make sure that it scales uniformly. Let's try 70 by 70. That looks pretty good. Oh, it automatically linked it. That looks pretty good, I think. One thing I do like to do sometimes, if it doesn't know that I want it centered here, from here to here, I'll just add a box in there. Let's do that. Let's do that. And then that way I can just bring this up here and then center it within the box. And then I will remove the box. And that looks good. Now let's look for an icon, maybe like a flame to indicate that it's heating. So let's look up fire. I'm going to try to stick with a black and white icon. I think a little color here might pop and make it look good, but just to stick with the uniform minimalist look, I'll just go with a black and white one. I kind of like these style here. As you can see, if it doesn't have the crown underneath it, that means it is a free icon. Again, if you look, there are tons of free icons here, so you're not going to be really limited with a free account. But let's go ahead and choose this one. I kind of like this one here, and let's edit the color of it. We'll make it white again. Download it as a PNG. I don't think we need that big of an icon last time, so let's just do 128. We'll match the same size as the settings icon when we go in to put it into the UI. So let's put it here. And I think the other one was 70. And then we can drag it around, center it with the settings icon, and then match it up with the top there. And I think that will be good. Very basic UI, but I think it gets the point across of what we're trying to portray. Now I think this is pretty good for a home screen. Let's go ahead and flesh out a little bit of the details on what happens with when you click on one of these icons, or maybe when you drag this over here. So if we click on the frame one itself, we can even just name it. If we double click on it, it opens up an editor here, and I'll just say home screen. And then with it selected, you can hit Control D, and it'll just duplicate it to the right. That way we have a exact copy of the first screen. That way if we want to just kind of traverse along the workflow, we can make minimal changes. So what I think I'll do here is mock up what happens when you hit the flame icon. So I think I'd like something to pop up here. Let's center it. And then we'll give it some rounded corners. So let's change the color. This one isn't actually too bad, but I want it to be just a little darker. I want it to kind of stand out, make sure you know that it's kind of like a pop-up. So I think that looks good. Now let's add some options here that you would click to be able to control the HVAC unit. So we'll say heat, will turn the text to white. Let's make it a little bigger, not too big. 36. That looks pretty good. Maybe even a little bigger. Let's try 42. Good. I like that. We'll center it up here. That looks good. And then we'll copy and paste it, bring it down. Let's actually center it with this text here, and we'll write cool. Let's just make sure it's centered with the box. Yeah, actually that looks good. And then let's add one that's auto. And as you can see, as I'm bringing it down here, it shows that the spacing between the heat and the cool and the new one, which still says cool, is 63. This is a good way to help make sure that you are spacing it consistently. So let's do auto. All right, so this looks a little bland, this menu here. So let's add kind of like a separating line between them, straight line. So let's go edge to edge. And we'll make this this line white and thicker. White. Oh. 4. Okay. And now let's center it between heat and cool, which it is. And then let's copy and paste it, and then center it between cool and auto. Nice. I think it might look better if we add a stroke around this box. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now that I look at it, I'm thinking this might look a little better. Let's see what it looks like. Black. I actually like that, so I'm going to keep it like that. Now that we have this, let's kind of add a screen that would represent what would happen if we hit cool. So if we copy and paste this first one, actually, we don't have to do much changing. We can just change this to cooling. Let's make sure that's centered. Let's change this to 61. And then we're going to replace this icon. Let's go back to FlatIcon, and let's look up something like snow. Kind of liking this one here. It's not too complicated, but also not too minimal. Yeah, so I think I'm going to use that one. Let's download it in white. Download. I like that 128, so we'll do that one. Let's first delete this fire icon, put the ice crystal in. Let's change the dimensions, 70, and then we can center it up with everything. Good. Let's also change this screen name to HVAC select or heat cool select. And then for the home screen here, we'll just say home screen cool icon. Then we'll just go back and change this one to home screen heat icon. Now let's add one more for an auto. I can't really think of anything that would look good for auto, so let's just go and search auto and FlatIcon and see what inspires us. Let's auto. No, so auto comes with car, so let's do automatic. Actually, I like this. This looks pretty good, pretty self-explanatory and minimalist. I actually like this one better, but it is a premium icon. And as I said, I do have premium, but just for the sake of this video, if anyone else wants to use it, I'll go with this one. Let's make it white. And then download 128. Okay, and let's go back to here. Let's delete this one. Drag in our auto. Change the dimensions. Yeah, I like that. It looks pretty good. Bring it there. We'll change this to home screen auto icon. Good. Cool thing that I like about Figma. Actually, I'm sure most, if not all, prototyping and mockup tools do this, is you can go into this prototyping mode, select different icons or rectangles or pretty much touch points, and you can drag them to different screens. And that way, when you want to present it, you can kind of have a semi-functional, really just UI functional sort of clickable demo. So let's go ahead and do that with this to show an example. This, if you click this, it would go here. Then I can even add a prototyping here for heat would go to this screen, cool would go to this screen, and then auto would go to this screen. So I think if we go and hit this here and then hit play, it'll give us a shareable link. Here I'll hit this fire icon. See, it'll open up this menu, and if I hit heat, it brings me back here. If I hit cool, oh, I don't think I added that. Let's go back and add that. This will go here. All right, now let's press play again. All right, so if I hit heat, it'll open up this menu. Heat brings me back. Heat, cool. See, cools, temperature changed, cooling. Click again, auto. Let's go back and add some settings pages. So copy the screen again. We can actually just drag it down here so it's not continuously just expanding to the right. We'll go back to the design to hide all those icons. So now I'm thinking here, if I hit the settings button, instead of a dynamic object or a dynamic pop-up being created here, I'll probably just make this whole thing transition into a new screen that has kind of like a stack view menu. So let's delete everything here. All right, now let's add a rectangle to hold the menu. I think this will be good. We'll just center it up in the screen. Let's do what we did here. I kind of like the look of this, so we'll give it a radius of 5. And then let's give it a white stroke. And the stroke length will, or the stroke width we'll say is 3. And then let's change the color to black. Cool. All right, so now let's add some options here. Let's say maybe a toggle for Celsius. Oops. Or let's call this temperature units. All right, and now let's center it up. Now I usually use Control D to duplicate multiple items, and then when I reposition them and do Control D again, it'll take my previous spacing and just keep repeating it. But unfortunately, my recording software doesn't really like the Control D shortcut, so I'm just going to manually do it. Let's respace them a little bit. Good. Let's say here, we'll make this a schedule. And then this one will say settings and Wi-Fi. And this one might just be an about. Now that I'm looking at it all centered up, I don't really like that. I think it will probably look better if I align them all over here, like this. And then on this side, I will try to add some icons to make it look a little better. Let's look up temperature. This one looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and download this one in white. Download it, PNG 128. Let's put it in here. Let's try 64. It's still a little big, so let's try 48. I think that looks pretty good. Let's put it in here. Let's center it up with temperature units, and I think right about here is good. And that way we can just bring this back a little bit, and then also bring these back over here to line that up. Schedule, let's look for maybe a calendar icon. I think that would probably look pretty good. So let's go to calendar. Right, so let's look for a calendar icon. This one looks pretty good. This one looks pretty good. Actually, I kind of like this one. But we don't really have any other icons with numbers or text in them, so I'll probably just steer clear from that one. And let's go ahead and use this one. Okay, and then let's make this white. Download. There we go. Let's bring this into our project. I think we made this 40. Is that what this one was? Oh, 48. Okay. Okay, and then let's center it up with schedule and the other temperature icon, settings and Wi-Fi. Let's just name this Wi-Fi settings. That way we can just put a Wi-Fi symbol in there and call it a day. Let's look for a Wi-Fi symbol. This one actually looks pretty good, so I think I'll use this one. Let's make it white, PNG. Okay, and then we'll put that into our project. Make it 48. Okay, and now for about. I think it'll just probably be like a circle with an eye, but let's see what they have for about. Yes, okay. So let's see. A bunch of these are not free, ones that I like at least. So instead of looking at info, instead of looking at about, let's look up info instead. There we go, much better. This one looks pretty good. I like it. Let's use it. Okay, now we have this. Let's add this to our project. And then let's go bring it in. 48. And I think that looks pretty good. So looking at these, I don't think we're going to implement every single one of these screens, only because I want to keep the videos shorter. The last video I did trying to recreate a UI, it was just really long. That's why I'm separating out the UI from the QML code, then in each individual video itself as well. I don't want to have to go too far down the rabbit hole. So I think I'm just going to have them probably all go and navigate to the same page. We'll just make it an about page. That should be simple enough. Again, I like to use Control D. If I do Control D, it'll just duplicate this screen right over here. But my recording software, again, doesn't really like that. So I'll just do a copy paste. I think I'll keep this template here. And then just put some info in here. And then we'll just add some about text. We'll just say made by, let's change this to white. Monty, the software engineer. And then we'll move it over here, center it up. And then we'll just say developed using Qt/QML. Perfect. All right, so I think that's pretty good for the screens that we'll want to implement. We'll have a front end in QML showing all these screens, and then I think we'll have a basic C++ object or maybe a couple objects in the background that keep track of the current temperature as well as kind of some basic logic behind heating or cooling depending on the target temperature and the current temperature. So stay tuned for the next video where we will actually implement it in QML.